Airbnb bust is real. Airbnb cash flow is exceptionally hard to come by. This is the honest truth, especially with interest rates as high as they are right now, where most people who do this on their own are getting somewhere between 6.5% all the way up to 7.75% interest rates right now. And to make matters even worse, this market is very competitive, and dare I use the S word, saturated. And all of this is specifically true if you're doing Airbnb short-term rentals the wrong way. Welcome to the channel. My name is Nick, and in this video, we're going to break down specifically how we avoid having any of that stuff happen. I'm going to talk about the most common mistakes most investors make that get them absolutely kicked in the face by doing things wrong when they do short-term rentals for the first time, specifically on their own with no help from anybody else who spends all day looking at deals, negotiating deals, underwriting deals, and making sure things can actually cash flow. Now, if you're familiar with the channel, welcome back. If you're new here, our company B&B Accelerator helps over 220 clients in the last few years close on over 360 homes for the tax benefits, for the cash flow, and we specifically try and avoid every single one of these mistakes throughout our underwriting process to make sure we pair clients up with homes that can actually cash flow and actually get them massive tax benefits. We look at literally over 1,000 deals every single week to take the guesswork and the legwork out of finding, negotiating, disqualifying deals as much as possible so that you don't have to. We go above and beyond what any other company will do, and we actually try and negotiate agents out of deals or reduce their total commission owed so we can save you a ton of money and pass that savings on to the buyer. And we do the same thing with lenders. We try and get rid of loan officers, mortgage brokers, and pair clients up directly with banks for lower or zero loan origination fees, lower interest rates, and overall better entries into the deal and better cash flow. We support 95% done for you throughout the closing process. We order and schedule the inspection reports, the insurance quotes, all the back and forth with a lender or a bank or the title company, even ordering a remote mobile notary so they can actually go right to wherever you're at the day of your closing so you don't need to drive anywhere to close. We help you post-close to maximize the cash flow. We help find and negotiate the general contractors, landscaping teams, designers, even the co-host who's going to manage the property as turnkey as possible for you so that you get to take as much of the guesswork and legwork out of this process. And we'll even pair you up with the tax advisors, the CPAs, and the cost segregation study companies that'll help you max out the tax savings and get a cost segregation study done for the cheap. Instead of paying over $5,000 to $15,000 for a cost seg study, we have companies that'll help you for significantly less. So enjoy this video. I'm going to break down a list of the most common mistakes I see people who have done this on their own the wrong way, how to avoid it and do everything the right way. So enjoy this video. Let's dive in. So the first and most important topic is buying homes that are way too small. I have seen countless people get destroyed. You've probably seen these posts on Twitter, on social media of Airbnb bust. I can't make any money. Nobody's renting my home anymore. Well, the reality is, and this is point number one, the quickest way to lose money in Airbnb is to do a small home that competes with hotels and 70 to 80% of the rest of the Airbnb market. So in our time helping hundreds of clients, we hear the C word and the S word. Number one is competition. Number two is saturation. Clients will often come to us and say things like, Nick, I heard Airbnb is competitive. Nick, I've heard Airbnb is saturated. How do I make sure that I can do this and actually get cash flow? Well, the number one mistake people make is they literally enter into markets where the competition and the saturation is at an all-time high. And the easiest way to do this is go the opposite end of the spectrum and compete in a market where significantly fewer people actually compete and a higher volume of people actually demand a property type like these. The categories we almost never touch in our program are 1, 2, and 3 bedroom homes. And the reason because is Airbnb's true product market fit is group travel, specifically luxury and premium group travel. Let me explain. So when you're traveling alone, or let's say you're traveling in a party of 2 people, maybe it's you and your spouse, the common, most easy example to reference is what is going to accommodate you guys the best? Number one response is almost always a hotel. Hotels are a proven solution for 1 person, 2 person, sometimes even 4 or 6 person travel. And the reason is hotels are consistent. When you know that you're going to a hotel, you know exactly where to find it on a map, you know how to check in, You know what the check-in process is going to be like. You're going to walk over to an elevator, take your bags up, check into the room, enter the room with a key. You know exactly what you're getting. And the reason Airbnb doesn't quite have that same product market fit for smaller group travel is because there's volatility involved. There are co-hosts or property managers or hosts who are the ones running these properties, and you sometimes have no idea what you're going to step into. You're making a judgment based on reviews and other items that you see on a listing, like on Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, Google Vacation Stays, Hopper, Hostaway, Guesty, Hospitable, whatever platform you might see a listing on. You're essentially going to take a risk, and the reason people don't like to do those types of homes overall is because it's just so much easier to go check in to a hotel. It's more convenient, it's more accommodating, simpler, easier, faster. And to make matters worse, even when the experiences are good for those 1, 2, or 3 bedroom homes for those smaller groups, you're actually needing to compete with hotels. So if people are searching for accommodations for 2, 4, or even 6 people, they're also typically looking at hotels, and hotels have a plethora of options. And the worst part about this category is it is the most saturated portion of the Airbnb market, because literally in almost every area, 60 to 70 to 80, sometimes even 85 or 90% of all the listings in that area are typically 1, 2, or 3 bedroom homes. So here you have 2 things specifically working against you. Number 1, Airbnb does not have product market fit quite at the level on the other end of the spectrum like we actually do on larger homes. We don't have that product market fit in smaller homes. And number 2, there's literally just a ton of competition. You have to differentiate yourself like crazy. Even when you do have a differentiated nice home, it's still very difficult to show up in those search engines and get impressions and actually get people to click through. There are too many options. We don't like that route. So instead, we'll almost always follow Airbnb's tried and true, perfected product market fit, which is buying 4, 5, and 6 bedroom homes, specifically because they can comfortably host groups of 8, 10, 14, 16, even 20 people, or sometimes more. And the best part is that is exactly what those types of groups and those types of travelers are looking for in their stay experience. So the number 1 thing we help clients with is, number 1, maximizing these beds and heads counts. So the maximum number of bedrooms for the lowest possible purchase price with the minimum required set of amenities that we need to offer what's called a unique, differentiated, and also superior type of experience. And it typically looks like this. Not only do we just buy these larger homes and run them as Airbnbs because of the accommodations in the space, but it's also the shared space and this unique experience. For example, if you do happen to have 12 to 14 to 16 people staying at the same hotel, well, they're obviously going to be segregated into different rooms. There is no shared space where everybody can hang out. There's no living room. There's no backyard where we can put in a fire pit. There's no backyard where we can install things like mini putting greens or sand volleyball courts or other revenue driving amenities that tend to promote higher average daily rates and higher occupancy for these types of homes. And specifically in the interior, we can't do things like living rooms or game rooms or even movie theater rooms that we sometimes add in to some of these larger properties. Hotels literally cannot offer a more competitive experience, and typically, because of this economy of scale, it's much cheaper on average for 14, 16, 18 people to just rent one home for $900, $1,500, $2,000, $3,000 per night on weekends versus spending significantly more across multiple hotel rooms, multiple other sets of fees, and it just doesn't make sense. This is the number 1 mistake that we see people doing smaller homes, thinking that that's a lower risk opportunity for them rather than doing higher priced, higher luxury, higher sized, higher bedroom bath count homes. And the reality is you are actually competing with a significantly smaller percentage of competitors, but the rate of demand for these larger homes is actually quite significant. In fact, one of the coolest things we've discovered is when we're actually category king, when we get one of the nicest or maybe the second, third, fourth, or fifth nicest home in a specific sub-market, because we've maxed out the number of bedrooms and we've done a really good job putting in design work, general contractor work, landscaping team work that typically takes on average 3 to 5 days post-close for the general contractor and the landscaping team, and maybe anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks for a designer, depending upon to what extent they're designing the home or redesigning the home. We've discovered that this is the most tried and true proven method to make sure that you're maximizing the cash flow. You don't have to worry about Airbnb bust. You just need to follow this thesis, and the number 1 item is to make sure Airbnb's product market fit is group travel, specifically luxury and premium group travel, so you've got to purchase your homes accordingly. The next most common mistake I hear is people completely sitting on the sidelines when interest rates are at one of these all-time high or near all-time high interest rate environments, kind of like they've been for the last 2 years, this is completely wrong. If you think that nothing can cash flow when rates are 8%, 7.5%, 7%, 6.5%, even 6%, which we're actually getting some of our clients right around 6.125% at the time of recording this video with a private bank that we introduce our clients to, you can absolutely cash flow on your homes. But most people make this mistake that during high interest rate environments, you can't get anything to cash flow because they're missing this one element. When interest rates are high, the rest of the market gets a little bit depressed in terms of the purchase price. So what's actually beautifully happening right now, which makes this one of the most opportune times as a buyer in short-term rental real estate, you have the opportunity to buy things towards or at the very bottom of what we would call a correction. A correction is when prices in a market drop or dip considerably, so much so typically after a high interest rate environment has been happening and sustained for quite some period of time. This is a product of fewer and fewer buyers being in that market because the interest rates are so significantly high and have sustained that high rate that squeezes buyers out of the market. And what also happens for sellers is because there are fewer buyers who are willing to put in offers on their homes, those sellers accordingly need to slowly stair step down and adjust down on their pricing. It slowly corrects the market so that instead of these overinflated markets, specifically places like the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee is a very prime example. For almost 1.5 years, we literally bought nothing out there because the market had yet to actually correct down. It took stubborn sellers and stubborn agents to finally get a grip and then learn that they were aggressively overpricing these homes, whether they knew it or not, for almost 18 months straight. Well, at the beginning of this year, we finally saw that market correcting down. And as of right now, Q4 of 2025, we're buying everything we can out there because of this one item. Now, in addition to making sure that when you do buy homes at this slightly discounted rate relative to the rest of the year or the rest of a 5-year or a 10-year cycle, one of the important things you need to ensure is you also need to add in significant revenue driving amenity because yes, your monthly payments will go up as a product of having a slightly higher interest rate. The good news is this: number one, you need to make sure that you actually are committing to design work, general contractor work, and typically landscaping work post-close to add in these revenue driving amenities that are proven to add revenue and help you, so to speak, punch above your weight class in this sub-market. And what's also really cool about this is in 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 years into the future, when the home goes up a significant amount in value, you can do what's called a cash out refinance, which means you essentially order an appraisal, get the newly appraised value of that home, and you will take a new loan against that new value of that property, use those loan proceeds to pay off your old debt. So now that old debt is gone. Those old monthly payments are gone. And you have this new set of debt with a new set of monthly payments. And the most ideal scenario is the home went up so significantly in value that the loan amount went up in value as well. So you might have this discrepancy between the amounts of loans that you're now paying because the loan amount has gotten higher, but you can keep that monthly payment the same or potentially even lower if the interest rate at the time of your cash out refi is actually lower. And this is one of the most powerful things to do with short-term rentals. If you can have a home that cash flows when rates are 7.5%, 7, 6.5, 6%, well, that home is going to cash flow even harder as time goes on, as you gain more 5-star reviews, as you command the opportunity to get superhost status and potentially charge a significant premium for what appears to be a superior experience that your guests want to have. And this is the thing that is lost. When most people look at Airbnb, they're trying to figure out how the income projections are going to be. They're going to use Airbnb. They're not going to use hardcore tools like AirDNA, Price Labs, even Rabu, some of these other platforms. They're just looking at the interest rates and not considering what the actual all-in expenses are and what the actual historical revenue has been when factoring in the income. And this brings us to item number 3. The third biggest mistake that we've seen investors make is not understanding how to accurately project expenses and not accurately understanding how to project income. One of my favorite things about the short-term rental space is it is so freaking easy to actually cheat and go and look at what other homes in those areas are actually doing in terms of average daily rate, the occupancy, and specifically the most important number, their trailing 12 months of revenue. And this is why using tools like this, instead of guessing and looking 6 weeks into the future and seeing what other listings in the area are commanding on platforms like Airbnb or VRBO, it is so important to get this right, and this is why. So earlier this week, we had an onboarding call with a pair of clients who are absolutely brilliant investors and brilliant at their high income earning W-2 job. These guys have invested in oil and gas. They've invested in other funds, syndicates, and REITs for real estate. But one of the issues they were having is they could not wrap their head around how to accurately make income projections because they were using the wrong data set and they were using the wrong method to make their projections. When it comes to data set, Airbnb as a platform is going to show you future bookings that are only a percentage of what that home is actually going to do in those periods of time. So for example, if it's October 15th right now, and you're looking at what this home is doing, well, you might see 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 10 weeks into the future, the home is being booked out. And then you see the available weekends and weeknights that are available, and you see a specific price. This is not, I repeat, this is not going to give you any insight whatsoever into what the home is actually doing over a 12-month span of time and what the average daily rate and occupancy is actually going to be when you take over a home in the area, when you add in the amenities, and it's an inaccurate representation of what the home is actually going to do. The true data set that you need to use is what we would call a historical set of comps. So comps are comparable properties in a specific market, and that historical data set is called trailing 12 months of revenue. So you need to use a tool like an AirDNA, like a Price Labs. You need to pay a pretty penny for a subscription or pay for an area or pay whatever you need to pay so that you can literally sit down, pull up data sets, and pull examples of what other homes in that specific area have done over the last 12 months, because Airbnb is a marketplace. You're going to fall somewhere in that rank order list of where home number 1 has been doing $160,000 a year, home 2 is $130, home 3 is $120, home 4 is $110, $110, $110, $105, $95, $90, $90, $90. You're going to fall somewhere in that category or somewhere within those ranges. You have to be able to actually know the data. You have to be able to look at a data set and use historical comps to project future revenue. Which leads me to my second sub point. Now that you're using the right data set, you have to use the right methodology, and let me break this down for you as simply as possible. Many decades ago, McDonald's was scaling its franchises, and what they had to do was every time they wanted to launch a new McDonald's, they had to take a pretty substantial risk. They had to spend tens, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars to do this market analysis where they try and figure out where is the population now, what is population growth, what are traffic trends like, where do we get a lot of foot traffic and car traffic, and where does it make the most sense to put our McDonald's franchise next? The reality is this worked exceptionally well for McDonald's. A lot of these franchises ended up doing really, really well. And other newcomers into the space like the Burger Kings, the Taco Bells, the KFCs, they were trying to wrap their head around how do we figure out where's the next destination for us to install one of our franchises so that we can also ensure that we're making money as well. Well, instead of these other franchise restaurants doing their own set of analytics to determine where does it make sense to put their next franchise, what they would do is they would take a page out of McDonald's book and literally cheat code their way into figuring out where is the best performing spot to put our new franchise. What these restaurants silently did behind the scenes is they were able to pay a third-party firm to extract data on McDonald's performance. So they were able to access their profit and loss statements and uncover which of these franchises are actually doing above their weight class or punching above their weight class and doing better than the standard. And it made the most sense to go and drop a Burger King or a KFC or a Taco Bell right next to one of those rather than one of the other restaurants that wasn't performing quite as well. And the reason we love short-term rentals so much is because it is so easy to do the exact same thing when you take a look at the comps that are laid out beautifully for you in the AirDNA dashboard and see exactly what was the trailing 12 months of performance of other homes, so you can avoid those areas where there simply isn't a ton of travel demand, and you can focus on those areas where there's tons of demand. And you adding in another 4 or 5 or 6 bedroom home that punches above its weight class with the right design, with the right amenities, makes it so much easier to know with great certainty that if you do diligence and do your underwriting the right way, it's actually quite easy to project the income on a short-term rental if you, number 1, pull data from the right data set, and number 2, use the right methodology to actually income underwrite and make projections on the income using these right strategies. The fourth and biggest mistake that I see getting in the way of people actually doing Airbnb deals that are actually going to cash flow as much as possible is this idea of being in proximity to the property rather than optimizing for profitability. So around 25 to 35% of the clients we work with, one of their number one criteria when buying a short-term rental is to be in some proximity within typically driving distance of 30 minutes to 2.5 hours to be able to oversee the property and specifically put out fires when goes wrong. And this is categorically the wrong thing to prioritize. Airbnb is a phenomenal platform, and the short-term rental vacation space is a phenomenal vehicle for real estate investing. And the most important thing to recognize is you should optimize for profitability, not necessarily proximity, because it doesn't matter whether you're 50 miles or 5,000 miles away from the property, you will be working with a co-host, which is synonymous for a property management team. And a co-host has three main responsibilities when you work with them to oversee the property. A co-host's responsibility starts with number one, revenue management. So they do everything from creating the listings, managing the listings, pulling all the knobs and levers to maximize the average daily rate, the amount that you charge per night, and the occupancy so that you maximize the number of bookings you generate every single month. And they are the ones who create this process over and over and over again on multiple platforms like Airbnb, VRBO, Booking.com, Expedia, Google Vacation Stays, which is a dark horse candidate to slowly overtake the Airbnb market, and that's been a long time coming, and other platforms. The second responsibility of a co-host is guest management. So this has everything to do with managing guests who are trying to make a reservation, those people who are about to check in, those guests who are staying at the property, and finally, those guests who are checking out. And the third key responsibility, and this is truly the most important hands-off approach that you need to take and allow your co-host to stay hands-on with everything to do with the property, it is team and home management. Specifically, this includes but isn't limited to, number one, the cleaning teams. 90% of the people coming in and out of the home every single month who aren't the guests are the cleaning teams. So making sure that you have clean teams scheduled, making sure that you have multiple backup cleaning teams. People like lawn care specialists or pool and spa and hot tub maintenance people, electricians, plumbers, the occasional handyman, the occasional HVAC specialist. All these parties and responsibilities fall under the umbrella of the co-host team to manage as hands-off, as turnkey as possible so that you don't have to lift a finger. One of the best things about co-hosts is that their relationship with you when they work together is they are 100% incentivized to make money only as a result of you making money. Co-hosts typically take a percentage of the total revenue that your property generates every single year. And if the property is not making money, the co-host will not make money either. So there's this brilliant level of alignment where the co-host is 100% incentivized to make sure that the home is in great shape, guests are happy, and that they're maximizing the revenue as much as possible so that you, the client, who literally has no idea how to do all the guest management, the revenue management, the team management, they want to keep that process as hands-off as possible, and they want you to stay out of their way. Well, what this specifically means is, even if there were something that needed to be solved at the property, you probably work your own 9 to 5. There's almost zero scenario where it's even going to be reasonable for you to step out of your work scenario, go to the property and solve any fire or anything that immediately needs a solve. Typically what co-hosts will do is they'll make a quick phone call to a local cleaning team who's typically an extension or a representation of the co-host team. They will show up to the property and solve literally as many problems as possible. And for larger items where you might think I need to be myself at the property overseeing a general contractor or an HVAC specialist or somebody else installing or repairing or adding this larger amenity, well, the good news is almost every single co-host has some local party, boots on the ground, who's a high trust individual that they will pay to go to the property and almost represent you and act on your behalf as if they also cared about this investment as much as you do. So this is one of the most important ways that we have seen people make mistakes when it comes to suggesting I need to do a property that is so close to me so that in this scenario where the property has some sort of issue or there's some item that I need to be present at the property for it to solve does not exist. Co-hosts will take care of almost every single thing and the things that they can't take care of, they'll employ somebody locally to act on your behalf, represent you, and be there overseeing any other big ticket items that need to be done. So you don't need to drive or fly to the property just for a small $1,500, $3,000 repair, enhancement, or replacement that needs to happen 6 to 12 months after you launch the property. I could go on and on and on about the typical mistakes I see first-time investors make. So what I did is I recorded a 60-ish minute video breaking down exactly what we do to max out cash flow on properties. I'm going to link that towards the end of this video. And if you're a high-income earner who makes over $400,000 per year and you want to get a done-for-you Airbnb, 95% of the guesswork and the legwork taken out for finding, negotiating these deals, we typically add around 15 to 20 deals for clients to review every single week. We'll help you maximize the cash flow post-close by literally doing a design review call, telling you on a video exactly what needs to be done, writing out a checklist, and handing that over on a silver platter to a landscaping team, a general contractor, a designer, even scheduling these people to visit the property the same weekend that you'll also be at the property so that you can knock out your material participation and oversee what these people are doing so everything goes perfectly swell. We'll pair you up with a proven co-host team who again has a track record of actually performing quite well in that area so you can max out the cash flow while keeping everything as hands-off as possible. And we'll also introduce you to all of the tax strategists, CPAs, cost segregation study companies that you need to max out the tax savings while again keeping everything as hands-off as possible. So if you're interested in getting started with the team, we would love to work with you. We offer special pricing to people who are very heavily invested in our YouTube channel. We only drop these small nuggets every so often, so we can give these incentives to people who do show up and see these videos, take some of the guesswork and the legwork out of our end so that we don't have to guess and know who's working with us because you've actually watched the YouTube channel, and we do a lot of the heavy lifting right here while you're watching these videos. So we would absolutely love to work with you. For the time being, click that link if you're ready to get started. And if you're staying on the channel, check out this video where we break down some of the easiest ways to make sure you're knocking out everything you need for material participation and bonus depreciation the right way.